Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Beef Up Front podcast here on Pick Swap Media. Your host, Ryan Coyle, joined by Kevin Cannon for our weekly NFL Big Five Games of the Week preview, the Week 2 edition. Kev, Week 1 in the books. It felt good to have NFL TV on our NFL football on our TV Thursday, Friday, Sunday, Monday. Feels weird tonight not having any, but when you wake up tomorrow, you only got one more sleep until it's back, and we got a really good Thursday night game this week as well. But how did it feel to see the Eagles start out 1-0 and get back on some winning ways on the wagers this weekend?
Yeah, it was definitely fun just having football back. Eagles looked pretty decent, big win down in Brazil, and then Sunday was just awesome sitting on the couch watching Red Zone all day.
Yeah, it felt good to hear Scott, to see Scott. It's like a long lost friend that you haven't seen in months, and he's back, and now we got him for 17 more weeks starting this Sunday. So looking forward to it. Week 2, I think we learned a lot about some teams week 1. I think the Cleveland Browns are one of the teams I think we learned the most about. That offense, if Watson's leading the charge all year, is really going to struggle. The Eagles, as we said, looked impressive on the offensive side, still kind of turning it over. Um, Dolphins needed a comeback. Bengals really struggled. We're going to talk about a bunch of these teams in this episode, but we got Thursday games, we got the Sunday game, and then we got the Monday game as well. But last week, records, I went 8-1, about as 500 as you can get. 2-3 straight up, 3-2 against the spread, 2-3 on the over/under, 1-0 on my lock, which was Titans under 20.5 team total points. And then I pushed on my dog. My actual bet on DraftKings was plus 6.5 for the Cardinals. They lose by 6, so I won my actual bet, but on the pod I had plus 6, so take that for what it's worth. Kev, you went 9-8, 5-0 straight up. Pretty impressive there. But then once we get to the spread, 1-4 and 1-4 on the over-unders. But if you're in a weekly pick'em pool, I guess you did pretty well. You went 1-0 on your lock of the week, which was Bears -4. We both kind of got lucky and kind of got bailed out with those because I think it was 17-0 at halftime, Titans. We both win our bet, though, there in that game. And then you were 1-0 on your dog with the Cowboys, absolutely rolling the Cleveland Browns. So, as we said, a lot of good action ahead this week. And, some teams trying to avoid that dreaded 0-2 start, and others looking to build off of their strong start. But we start on Thursday, head down to Miami where the Bills travel. Both teams start out at 1-0. Dolphins go through some chaos before the game last week with Tyreek Hill and a few other players getting handcuffed outside the stadium. But 8:15, Amazon Prime, Dolphins, 1.5-point home favorite here. Over-under is 50.5. What do you got on this game?
I really want to pick the Bills because I think Josh Allen can win this game single-handedly, but I just can't bring myself to do it. The Bills' defense really concerns me. Last week, they allowed the Cardinals to convert 7 of 13 first or third downs, and they allowed the Cardinals to jump out to that huge lead. I know, they did end up coming back, but last week was the Cardinals. This week, it's the Dolphins. It's also in Miami, in the heat. I think Achane, Hill, and Waddle could have huge days, and the Bills will continue running the ball with Cook and try and take some pressure off Josh Allen because he kind of last week needed to play Superman ball to win the game for them. I don't know if he's going to be able to do that every single week. I do think early in the season, the Bills are still figuring out who they are on both sides of the ball. So I think Miami wins the game at home here, and they have some big plays in the passing game. So I'm going Dolphins 28, Bills 23, Dolphins covering the 1.5 and the over of 50.5 hidden.
Yeah, Bills impressed me in the second half on Sunday. It was a real weird first half, real weird kind of game plan. But that's a team that I think has a lot of new pieces, and the Bills might take some time to really get rolling. But you kind of said it best. Josh Allen went Superman mode in the second half there, leading them to that come from behind win. My major concern, though, with this Bills team, it's highlighted this week, but especially over the course of the season, is the secondary. I think the secondary is a real weakness, one of the weaker groups in the league, and a team like the Dolphins that obviously has the capability to expose that weakness. It's not a good matchup for them. The speed of Tyreek and Waddle at this time of year as well, and the location, a September game in Miami, that 9 out of 10 times is going to be ideal weather conditions for the way that this team wants to play. We saw what happened last year when they went to Kansas City. They're not really built for that. So it's really important, I think. I think you could argue it's probably the most important team in the NFL to get home field advantage, to be able to get the one seed and have the AFC Championship go through your home stadium to allow you to play your kind of style and not really be impacted by the weather or other factors. And then you have the Super Bowl this year is in New Orleans, so you get an indoor game on the turf. Very, very important for the Dolphins to have a strong regular season and try and get that number one seed. But with all that being said, you get this is an ideal kind of spot for them. They don't have to go to Buffalo, where it's usually bad weather no matter what time of year. Um, if you take out the Thanksgiving games last year, though, Thursday night games, um, home teams went 10-5 straight up on Thursday night games last year. So I think you have to give the nod to the home team on these short weeks, quick turnarounds. And I'm going to go with the team that has arguably their biggest strength is their downfield passing and their speed against this team with their opposing their opposing team. Their biggest weakness is the secondary with the Bills. So I'm going to go Dolphins 27, Bills 20, Dolphins -1.5, and the under 50.5 hitting there. We've seen so many primetime unders over the past couple of years. I'm going to keep rolling with that there. All right, we go to Sunday now. We go to the 1 o'clock window. Two teams that were very impressive on Sunday with the Saints at 1-0, traveling to Dallas, who is also 1-0. 1 o'clock kick on Fox. Cowboys -6.5. Over under is 45.5. Cowboys blew out the Browns, and the Saints absolutely dismantled the Panthers. I wonder, what team kind of benefited more from that. But Kev, what were your thoughts on this matchup here?
I got the Cowboys winning 28 to the Saints 20. So the Cowboys cover 6.5 over 45.5 hidden. I didn't really even think about this one. It's the Cowboys. I know the Saints looked awesome last week, but it was against the Panthers. I'm not putting a ton of stock into it. When the Cowboys play on that turf in Arlington, they always just look 10 times faster. And then their numbers down there back it up as well. They covered the spread 6 out of 8 home games last year, and they won every game outright. Dallas is a very good team, and I think the Saints took advantage of a weak opponent last week. I don't think that these teams are even remotely on the same level. The Cowboys' defense looked great, and the offense did its job. I expect the defense to turn in a similar result this week, and the offense to even improve a little bit as the offseason contract issues are behind them now with Dak and CD. So I expect them to team up and have a big day.
Yeah, I'm a little bit more mad this week at the Cowboys than usual. I bet them on the money line, but I had CD and a touchdown 5-leg parlay. He was the last leg to hit. I think he was also the best odds to score out of that parlay. So a little bit more angry at the Cowboys this week than usual. But I know CD Lamb this week will probably find a way to go out there and have 3 touchdowns at least. But a damn impressive performance by the Dallas Cowboys on Sunday in Cleveland. Offense didn't do much, I think. I mean, Dak threw for under 200 yards, but with the way the defense played, they didn't need to. And my kind of MO with this Cowboys team this year is I think Dak might lead the league in passing yards and CD in receiving yards. I kind of thought coming into the season because I thought the defense was for sure going to take a step back. And I also thought, as a team as a whole, a little bit overrated. And the running game I didn't think was going to be great. I thought they would be kind of forced to go out there, and if they're going to win, Dak throw it 35, 40 times, CD getting 10 to 15 targets a game. Or if they're losing, they're going to have to throw and come from behind as well. So the defense showed up and showed out on Sunday. But really, how much did that say about them, and how much did it say about really what Deshaun Watson's going to be going forward? I think we might get a better answer to that this week. It's a Saints team that showed a pretty explosive passing attack last week. Derek Carr, 200 yards, 3 touchdowns. They ran the ball for a little under 200 yards as well. Should provide a much tougher test for this Cowboys defense. 6.5 seems like a pretty big number, but since Mike McCarthy took over in Dallas, he's 29-19 against the spread as a favorite, which is 3rd best in the league over that time. We remember how good the Cowboys were and how dominant the Cowboys were at home last year. And Dallas, whether we like to say it or not, has been really good in the regular season under McCarthy, especially at home. He's 25-10 straight up there. So I'm going to say the Cowboys offense gets clicking a little more this week, and the Cowboys take care of business at home. Give me Cowboys 30, Saints 20. So Cowboys -6.5, and the over of 45.5 hitting there. All right, 3rd game of the week, the team that is dead to me the most in the league, the Cincinnati Bengals, after knocking me out of my survivor pool. They were my gut instinct, and I usually don't like to go against my first instinct and then second guess myself. But I second guessed myself as soon as I picked them with all the offseason shit that they've been going through with Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and so on. And they dropped that game to the Patriots. Inexcusable. But they're 0-1. They traveled to Arrowhead to play the 1-0 Chiefs, where to their credit, they've had success there in that building, but they haven't had success early in the season. So interested to see what Bengals squad we get here in week 2. About a 425 kick on CBS. Chiefs are a 6-point favorite. Over under is 48.5.
Yeah, I got the Chiefs covering 28, Bengals 20, and the under at 48.5 hidden. This game's super interesting to me because the Chiefs look like they're just going to continue being the Chiefs, while the Bengals, I guess, are being the Bengals, still getting off to a slow start here. The Bengals offense just didn't exist last week. We'll see if Higgins is able to play this week, and the Jamar Chase contract situation still going on. Not sure if he's going to be practicing this week and then just go out and play in the game. So that's something to pay attention to this week as well. I think Joe Mixon is being missed a lot right now in for the Bengals. Zach Moss was fine with 9 carries for 44 yards, but after seeing Mixon's performance for the Texans, you can't help but wonder if the Bengals just made a big mistake there letting him go. And the part that intrigues me the most this week is the fact that Burrow does seem to be the only QB who's been able to consistently beat Mahomes and the Chiefs. He's 3-1 against Mahomes in his career. I don't think it's in the cards for the Bengals this week. There's just too many issues, and the Bengals better figure them out quickly, because if they don't, they're just going to be falling behind, especially in the division they play. Super competitive, and they might be digging too deep of a hole for them to dig themselves out of here pretty early into the season.
Yeah, I think the Cincinnati Bengals need to, after the season is over, do a complete kind of overhaul of how they handle their offseason program, training camp, and whatever really they did leading up to week 1, because they've had some real struggles with Joe Burrow and Zach Taylor at the beginning part of the season. And they always somehow, too, as you were kind of alluding to, Kev, they get into a hole and they got to dig themselves out. They always seem to be able to, but there's going to come a time and place and a day that you're not able to do that. So I think the Cincinnati Bengals really need to reevaluate how they prepare training camp for the beginning of the season. Um, Higgins out with the toe injury. Chase barely practiced all summer. And as you said, maybe he's just going out there and playing. He didn't look great in week 1. Like, you just can't lose that game at home to a Patriots team as almost a double-digit favorite. I'll be surprised if the Patriots win 2 more games the rest of the season. I think they're going to be a terrible team. I think they're going to play hard, but they are not a talented football team. And the Bengals just looked completely flat and unprepared in that one. I'm going to say that kind of rolls over into week 2. We haven't seen the Bengals play well early on in the season. Maybe Joe Burrow is just kind of like a big game player. Like, he gets up to play Patrick Mahomes and he doesn't get up to play Jacoby Brissett. But you got to win those games, especially if you want to be competing for the number 1 overall seed, competing for a division title. But I don't see that right now in this Bengals squad. A little bit too much turmoil going on. It might be for the best if they just buck up and pay Jamar Chase what he wants before this game, and you get everyone with their head on straight. But I think the Chiefs are going to make easy work of the slow starting Bengals this week. Give me them 27-17. Chiefs -6 and the under of 48.5. All right, we go to Sunday Night Football. If you said at the beginning of last year this was going to be a Sunday Night Football game, people would probably look at you like you had 10 heads. But you got the Bears at 1-0 after that pretty crazy second half comeback at the Houston Texans, who are also 1-0, 8:20 kickoff on NBC Sunday Night Football. Texans 6.5-point favorite. Over under is 45.5.
Yeah, I got the Texans winning by 10, 24-14. So they cover the 6.5, under 45.5. Win is a win, and the Bears got a win last week. And the good news for the Bears is that their defense is really, really good. And Caleb Williams, I know he didn't play great, but he didn't necessarily lose the game for them last week. It wasn't completely his fault that they were down. He wasn't great, but he very easily could have handed the game over to the Titans, and they just kept fighting. But the bad news for the Bears is they aren't playing the Titans this week or again this season. The Texans offense did what I think a lot of people thought they would do last week. Stroud looked good throwing the ball to his elite wide receiver group he has. And then Joe Mixon just looked awesome in the backfield, rushing for over 100 yards. The defense is still a work in progress after allowing some big plays to the Colts, but I think the offense will be able to score enough and be able to outlast the Bears here, as Caleb's still getting used to the NFL.
Yeah, that was a pretty ugly first performance from Caleb Williams, but I'm really excited to lock in and focus on this game. The Bears, as we said, figured out in the second half, cashed both our locks of the week somehow with Bears -4 and Titans team total under 20.5. I think it was when it was 14-0. It might have been 17-0, but I was looking. Titans were minus 650 on the money line. Bears were like plus 425, and I was like, already invested enough in this as potential loss because I had Bears -4 as well. I took that with you. Kind of kicking myself for not taking the chance on the money line there, but is what it is. But I don't think Bears fans are necessarily encouraged by what they saw week one from Caleb. But there was that stat kind of floating around all week. It was like the last 13 number one overall picks at quarterback were like 1-12 in their debut. At the end of the day, the Bears won and Caleb didn't play well. I think in years prior to this with Justin Fields, if Justin Fields didn't play well, the Bears would have lost. So I think they can kind of hang their hat on that they're more of a well-rounded team this year. Rome being out a couple of weeks with a knee injury, that's not good, especially for two young players looking to build some chemistry. But it might take some more time for them, for the Bears to really hit the ground running, and Caleb as well. And this is a much tougher test in this dangerous Texans team. We talked about it last week. They're my AFC champion this year. Two QBs in this one, though, that are potential stars going forward in the league, could battle it out for years to come. I think the Texans don't make as many mistakes, though, as the Titans did last week, and they're able to take down the Bears at home. I'm going to go Texans 24, Bears 14. The offense still struggles. Texas minus 6.5 and the under 45.5. And to wrap up the week, we head down to South Philly, Lincoln Financial Field. The 0-1 Falcons at the 1-0 Eagles, 8:15 kickoff on Monday Night Football on ESPN. Eagles -6, over under is 48.5. Kev, do the Eagles win and cover in the home opener?
Yes, I think they do. Eagles 30, Falcons 17. So Eagles cover the 6, under 48.5. The Eagles have a lot of reasons to feel good after week one. The biggest reason, obviously, being Saquon Barkley, 3 TDs in his first game, and he was doing it through the air and on the ground. I also think that the defense played pretty well overall, and they were definitely able to keep the Eagles in the game early last week, holding the Packers to field goals after those first 2 turnovers. Hurts' 2 interceptions are 100% something I'm worried about, and I think a lot of people should be worried about, because both of those throws were throws that as soon as he went to throw it, you were like, don't throw this. You could see that it was going to be picked. Under no circumstance should those balls have been thrown. But hopefully he's able to learn from that. It's not something that continues throughout the season. I was also pretty high on the Falcons coming into the year because I thought Kirk would be a perfect fit for getting the ball to all of those weapons that the Falcons accumulated on the outside down there. But just last week, Kirk Cousins, Bijan didn't look great. They didn't play the Steelers. They did play the Steelers, who have a top-tier defense, so that might have been part of it. And then Kirk obviously coming back from injury last week, hadn't played in a while. Probably not as mobile, and he is getting up there in age. But I do think some of the issues down there might be a little deeper than who they just played last week. We'll see if Kirk is able to bounce back this week. He has historically played really well against the Eagles, but if he doesn't, it could end up being Michael Penix's time a lot sooner than I think people thought. I do think the Eagles offense is going to be able to put up a lot of points against a pretty average Falcons defense here. So I'm going Birds winning by 13 at home.
Yeah, I'll keep it plain, simple, and honest in this one. I think the Eagles dominate from start to finish. I think the Falcons have a chance to maybe get one of those late touchdowns, Eagles in some prevent defense, and it shows that it's closer than it really was. But I do think the Eagles from start to finish dominate in this game. First home game, Falcons looked really clunky in that week one season opener against the Steelers, as you talked about. Saquon's first game at the Link, Foles' retirement ceremony. The building is going to be absolutely rocking the city. I bet you a lot of people are taking off or taking half days on Monday and going to be down at the Link tailgating. It looks like it's going to be a great night down there. Cousins doesn't look fully healthy yet. I saw a bunch of clips on Twitter of him not really being able to, or at least trusting his back foot, that right Achilles that he tore, and kind of planting and delivering off of it. He might not be fully healthy and ready to go yet. And as you said, that could maybe cause potentially a re-injury, or he just looks completely out of it, and Michael Penix does get the nod quicker than possible, or quicker than we thought possible. But really do think domination station in this one at its finest, unless Hurts turns it over multiple times. I think the Eagles win this game pretty easily. Cousins is usually good for gifting a few turnovers as well. It's important that they're able to cash out on that. But I'll go Eagles 30, Falcons 20. So Eagles -6 in the over of 48.5 there. All right, our last 2 picks of the week, our dog of the day and our lock of the week. As I said, I had Cardinals plus 6.5 in the bet slip, but plus 6 on the pod. So, a push away basically, but I real life it was a bet from going undefeated on these on week 1. So let's look to stay hot here. Week 2, dog of the day. This line flipped. This was Cardinals were favored. Now the Rams are, or excuse me, the Rams were favored to start. The Cardinals are favored now, but I'm going to go Rams plus 2 as my dog of the day this week. Since taking over in 2017 as the Rams coach, Sean McVay is 24, 16, and 4 against the spread after a loss. That's the best record over that time in the NFL. Give me the Rams on a bounce back after that tough game in Detroit last weekend.
Yeah, my dog of the day, I'm going Bucks plus 7 versus the Lions. They're also plus 260 on the money line. The Bucks looked really, really good last week. Maybe one of the best offensive performances all week. The defense will have their hands full with St. Brown, keeping him in check for the Lions. They played twice last year, and he went for 20 receptions for 201 yards. And Detroit won both games pretty easily, but I'm taking the Bucks plus 7 here.
All right. And my lock of the week, a little bit more juiced up than it usually is, but I'm going with a 2-team money line parlay. Eagles and Texans minus 125. We talked about it in the big 5 games of the week part. I think the Eagles win this one easily against the Falcons. I think it's a great spot at home there against a Falcons team that I don't think is prepared and ready to go yet. And then Texans, I think the Bears struggled last week. I think it's going to take a little bit more time for that offense to get going. And this is a fearless Texans team right now. So Eagles and Texans on the money line for Sunday night and Monday night. Primetime games, that pays out, or odds are minus 125 on that one. So that's what I'm riding with for my lock of the week in week 2.
My lock of the week, I'm going Chargers minus 6.5 against the Panthers, which is minus 110. I think Harbaugh's just going to run the ball all day, and then Bosa and Mack are going to be able to make Young feel uncomfortable all day. I think it could get out of hand, and the Panthers are just falling apart.
Yeah, it's funny to say that one weekend that they're just already falling apart, but I think that might be a play. I said it earlier, talking college football, but I'm going to bet against Temple. I think every game going forward in college and then in the NFL, bet against the Carolina Panthers. I think you come out on top this year. Interested to see, though, how they're bounced back from that Saints game. But that'll do it for NFL Big 5 Games of the Week here on Beef Up Front. As always, everyone, thank you for tuning in. Please like, subscribe, and we will talk next week.